Yo, what up? Welcome to another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. I'm Patrick, and we're actually doing something different for the first time. I'm going live if you're on YouTube or whatever. This is streaming on the Oakland Warriors podcast YouTube channel. And today I am joined for the second time by Chris Madrigal from the Town Tailgate podcast. A lot of thoughts on the A's, but welcome back, man. How you doing?
Yeah, and you can like see some of my like A's memorabilia behind me, and it's just like we don't have to get into that. We're talking Warriors now, man. Let's stick to that.
Yeah.
Subject. No, yeah, I'm pumped. Thanks for bringing me back. Season's been a roller coaster, but I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah. So first, like it's been a minute since I put out.
Oh, this is my first time going live, by the way, ever.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. Welcome to the club. This is like my second time, and like I told you, hopefully this goes well, so I don't have to edit anything when I put it on audio. But a lot of stuff has happened in the past week. I haven't put an episode out, and like you said, a lot of ups and downs. I mean, first and foremost, how worried are you about the Warriors right now? They lost 6 in a row. They just beat the Rockets, and people are trying to hype that up. But they started off strong, had that rough patch. How worried are you about this team?
Not. I don't understand the freakouts from like Warriors Nation. Like they lose a handful of games in a row, which, it can be scary when you first look at it. But like, if you have to look at the circumstances of some of these losses. That's kind of the way I see it. Like the Nugget. Okay, so on the 8th, on November 8th, we lost to the Nuggets by 3 points. Like that's the best team in the NBA, hands down. It's either them or the Timberwolves this season, based on like strictly what we've seen play wise. I'm not talking about like hype. I'm not talking about like off season rankings. I'm talking about personnel. I'm talking about what we've seen on the court from the NBA this season. The Nuggets are the best team in the NBA, and you can make a strong case for the Timberwolves for second, but the Nuggets have been more consistent. After that, lost to the Cavs, which was, a tough loss. I think you could argue that we were a little bit beat up from the loss to the Nuggets. Like, we kind of put everything we had on the court in that loss, and without Draymond also in that loss to the Nuggets. So we're just a little bit up. Lost in Timberwolves by 6 points on the 12th. So that was a back-to-back, a little bit tougher, also second best team in the NBA. And then we lost the Timberwolves again in that play-in game, which that was the game that Klay and Draymond got kicked out of the game. So we had no Steph, who still had the knee injury. We had no Klay because him and Draymond got kicked out 2 minutes in the game. And Chris Paul, like that game, proved everything I needed from Chris Paul. He literally put the team on his back. He willed that team to a very close loss, which was almost a win. I think they lost in the last possession of the game with none of the 3 Hall of Famers. Like that just said a lot about him, his leadership, his impact on the other players of the team. Because I think there's 4 guys with double-digit points in that game besides him. So for me, you just have to look at the circumstances of these losses. You can't just see the win and loss record and freaked out. That doesn't make any sense to me. And if you're doing that, you're not watching this team closely enough, which I get it. We're in football season. You're not watching every single game. But if you watch the game, it's hard to be upset and frustrated with this team. That's just my opinion. I know you have a different opinion on it, but yeah.
I mean, to me, I can honestly say that watching them last week during that losing streak, a lot of it was just bad product on the court.
Yeah.
It's
that OKC loss on Saturday, a couple days before that one was a tough one.
Yeah. I mean, it is something where you just look at it and you're like, okay, I'm not really watching this that closely. You get where that game's going, you see the trends and all that stuff, and you're like, okay, write it off. But in our conversations, and I talk about this all the time, it's a long season. And sometimes it's not fun to watch if they're getting shellacked or if they just look old and whatnot. But at the end of the day, we know what this team needs to do. They're trying to win 16 games in the springtime, right? Springtime into the summer. So, it's a process, and that's part of, sometimes you look at this team you can look at fandom a certain way, right? It's like you live and die with each and every game, or you look at the bigger picture, and that's how I tend to look at things. Are they perfect? No, definitely not. Are there flaws? Yeah, there's definitely flaws. One thing that I'd wanted to see after that promising 6-2 start or whatever was how they would look against some of the quote unquote better teams, right? And the Nuggets, they did pretty well. That was impressive to me. And then they literally, having played the Cavs before that, they literally ran into three teams that are probably the worst kind of matchup for them right now. Teams that are
big,
super talented, long, skilled, unafraid, and that's what you got with Cleveland. That's what you got with Minnesota, who I give props to Minnesota, man, because I thought they were going to fall apart. Anthony Edwards, he got that Team USA bump that you always see from certain guys, and then OKC, right? Like so, and the Warriors were down a couple guys, so it may not have been fun to watch, but I keep saying like, let's see with 20 games. What is it now? Like 15 games or something? 14?
Yeah, we're approaching the quarter-way point, which quarter-way is 18 games. I think we're at 15.
Yeah. So it's still a ways to go, obviously, but in terms of panicking, like I'm not gonna freak out. It sucks to lose 6 in a row, but I'm the same way. I'm not gonna celebrate a win over the Rockets. You know what I mean?
But to be fair, the Rockets are playing really well this year, though. I get it. It's only barely a quarter of the way through the season, but the Rockets are playing, and we have had no relief in this schedule. Like we haven't played the Jazz really. We haven't played the Jazz, haven't played the Pistons. Like we haven't played any of those lower tier teams, so really rack up the wins and get those confidence wins to help the team rally and kind of move forward from there. So I don't know. Maybe I guess you could make the argument. We'll see what the Rockets do by the end of the season, but right now they're playing well. So I don't give last night's win one of those beat up on the crappy teams, get some confidence wins.
Oh no, they're definitely good. I actually like them, and Sengun is one of those guys who's turning into the dude that we were like, oh man, maybe the Warriors should pick that guy.
Yeah.
And Udoka's doing a really good job. They were coming off a back-to-back or whatever, but I mean, what are your biggest concerns about this team? And how concerned are you about Klay and Andrew Wiggins?
I mean, okay, so Andrew Wiggins' deal, I'm gonna start with him because I have more issues with Klay. Andrew Wiggins' deal is Logan Murdoch put out this great piece on the Ringer beginning of the season. It was a profile piece on Chris Paul and the Warriors and the reasons for their adding him to the team this offseason. And in that piece, he talked about the Warriors, how they handled the personnel coming into camp and what they saw from the team in training camp. And Andrew Wiggins came into camp out of shape, and that was very disappointing for them because everything that happened last season. I'm not going to speculate the reasons why he left. I've heard some rumors, and if the rumors are true, that's unfortunate. Totally get why he would step away from the team, but his him coming into camp this season is a big issue because he was hands down the Warriors' number 2 guy in that championship run in 2022. And I wrote a piece for Fans First today, and it went up 30 minutes ago at 12 o'clock. So you can go check that out. Anybody who's watching or listening, it's on the homepage. It's the Warriors' second best player rankings because right now coming in the season, you expected Wiggins to be that person. That job belongs to him as the Warriors' second best player. I think that Klay is just on the downward trajectory of his career. That wasn't going to happen. Draymond Green, he's kind of a one-tool pony, plays a lot of defense, maybe has some presence in the post, probably not. But it's just not those 2 guys anymore. You kind of need Wiggins to be that person, and for him to come into camp out of shape, it's just disappointing. And now we don't really know who that second best player is. We don't know who. Steph doesn't have his sidekick to rely on to when other guys aren't playing well, or if he's being double covered, which is almost every single game. It feels like that he can dish to this guy, and this guy's going to put up 20 points, and you can rely on him. So the Wiggins thing is disappointing, but he's going to play himself in the shape. I think we saw a version of that on Saturday when he put up 30 points. He looks a lot better. Looked a lot better last night against the Rockets. So he'll get into shape. He'll be better. He'll attack the glass like he does. He'll do his amazing cutting and slashing the hoop. The 3-point shooting is a concern. He's at like 22%. Hopefully that goes up as well. That might just be exhaustion. He's taking these shots when he doesn't want to make any moves to the hoop. The Klay Thompson thing is like, man, as like a diehard Warriors fan, it's just like depressing to watch because like you heard the rumors about like how him and his agent are very far apart from Dunleavy in the front office on a contract because he's in a contract year, and him not playing well in a contract year. It's just like, I don't know what you do with him moving forward. Like, I have a Warriors group chat. I'm sure you do too. We were talking about it last night when he was struggling in the first quarter. He played way better last night. It was great, but he's struggling in the first quarter and Moody was playing really well. And we were like, man, like maybe they should move Moody to the starting lineup and put Klay in the, like on the bench, have him like, just have them swap those roles. Cause like even Moody's defense has been so good. So like, shouldn't you reward him for that? Like, but I don't know. It's just like, it's such a weird situation. Like, I guess it has to play out more. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see Kerr doing that anytime soon. It would have to be like disastrous because I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. It's like, I love loyalty. I love Kerr's loyalty, all that stuff, but he's overly loyal to some of these guys.
Yeah.
To the expense of developing guys like Moody and Kuminga. And, one thing I thought of actually to go back to those teams that they lost 6 games in a row to, it's like the Warriors do have, Kuminga and Moody as young guys. This is their 3rd year. And then when you see them in contrast to some of these young guys on OKC, Cleveland and whatnot, like they're not necessarily way less talented than any of those dudes. It's just that they've been allowed to develop. And the thing that bugs me a little bit is that in their first year, right? Like, yeah, they won a title. And so limited time for those kids. But then last season was such a lost season that the fact that you could not win and you could not even develop those guys even more, and that, Moody didn't play in the regular season, plays in the playoffs. Kuminga plays in the regular season, and he also shines when Wiggins is out and loses his minutes when Wiggins and Gary Payton come back and get healthy, get in the lineup. And then the big deal is that Kuminga like pouts or something like that. I don't really care about that. If you're competitive, you're going to pout, Imagine Draymond in that situation when he was younger, whatever. So, to me, looking at Klay, I mean, it's telling because when he got hurt with the ACL in 2019, that dude to me was really, really developing his all-around game, going to the basket,
Totally,
having all these moves and whatnot. He was like, to me, he was turning into like a Paul George-esque player in a way. Obviously a better shooter. Paul George has a better 3-point line in game, but he was developing that. And then what he's been trying to do, it feels like just capture the past. And it seems like he hasn't adjusted to his aging. I don't know what other parts of his game he could develop, but like obviously Steph has, you know what I mean? And Klay hasn't. And seeing him get guarded by those Thunder players, it's like, whoa, man, this guy has no breathing room. So I do wonder if where his path takes him, if he starts draining shots and becoming the guy that led the league in 3-pointers, although he was chucking a lot last year because he had to. Where's that going to go? I don't see him going to the bench anytime soon, but it sucks to have 2 of their starters really, really like playing mediocre basketball. You know what I mean? And
I don't see it happening at all. It was just kind of one of those conversations where it's like, how do we fix you, dude? Because like we don't want you to sacrifice. We don't want you to like be a lost cause in this this weird season that's happening so far, and this team that's like developing and changing to very different than what it was 8 years ago when this run hole started. So like, it's that, and also like how much restriction is he still having to his repaired ligament? Like, is that part of it? You could see it in his lateral movements. He's not as quick like that anymore, which is why his defense has gone down a little bit. But like, yeah, let's just hope that last night was a good sign for that, because if he can score like that, and I think a big part of it is having Steph back in the lineup as well as Chris Paul, because like those guys just know how to find him. So man, I don't know how to feel about him right now.
Yeah, it could also just be one of those things where it's like, oh, Klay's starting off slow, and then he'll pick it up. You know what I mean? And then all the hand wringing and all the hypothesizing will go away once they're like 20 games over 500 or something like that. You know, but the Wiggins stuff, it's like, you know, that dude is still in his late 20s. He's still in his prime. Yeah. It is disappointing that he is out of shape. I don't know what the reason could or may be. But I think that that was Klay last year, right? Klay had the terrible start.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole team had a terrible start, but like individually. And, you know, I keep saying, and I guess it gets kind of boring at some point when you just say, well, I expect these guys to gravitate towards the mean for each of them. And even if they're a few ticks below their career averages, then that's still in a good spot, you know? And I'm enjoying seeing Chris Paul mix it up with these guys. It's just fun to see a dude like that. And like you said, with him and Klay, that's something that I've talked about before. It's like, oh, wow, Klay, you know, in that second, when he comes in with the second unit or gets subbed back in, and seeing Chris Paul and Klay, I start imagining like, oh, what kind of backcourt would that have been if Klay had his own team in some past history, some other multiverse universe, and he had like a true pure point guard, you know, and running Reggie Miller, you know, screens with like a Mark Jackson type guy.
The Kevin Love trade ends up happening, and Minnesota trades him to like the Clippers, and then it's like, oh, we got this world where this backcourt is Klay Thompson and Chris Paul, and we got Blake Griffin. Like, who knows the possibilities there? Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and we got this comment from Amar Singh, who's a frequent commenter on the YouTube channel. He says, you know, reminding us of Klay started off terribly last year too. So it's like, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. That's what we hope for. But also, like, the difference is like getting older and whether or not he can do it in time. You know what I mean? Like a lot of these folks that follow this podcast, they know that it's a long, slow burn towards the end of the season. And, you know, we'll see how it goes. Let me ask you, when you watch this team lose 6 in a row to some of these more athletic teams, like, do you think it was just bad matchups, or do you think like those teams are just that good? You know what I mean?
You know, with the Nuggets, it's tough because like our biggest issue is that we're undersized. We have we really only have one true center on our roster, and that's Dario Saric. Like, Kevon Looney was moved to a center, and you know, because he had some injuries in college and his movement wasn't quite there, so he got bulky, he got bigger. He's only 6'9", so he's not like really like the center built. But he's changed into a center, and that's kind of it. You know, like Trace Jackson Davis played power forward in college. He can play the 5 because that's just his game. But like, so like going up against Jokic is just always going to be tough because we're undersized, and that's a lot of minutes on Sarge. It's a lot of minutes on Looney. And when Looney plays, you lose some offensive help. So it's just kind of a weird back and forth. With the Timberwolves, I like, you know, it's unfortunate we saw 3 games against them already, because I really think that we match up pretty well with them because we can run on them. And we didn't get the chance to do that in a couple of our games. One of them obviously was a suspension, and the other one was we didn't have Steph. But yeah, and then, you know, I mean, OKC's just younger. They're just going to be more athletic, and they're just going to move around. And I think we played pretty well against them considering the facts. But like, there's the only teams that in probably all of the NBA that I really worry about our matchups, because like last year, the big issue was like guard defense. Like with Klay not being what he was anymore, we kind of really only had one player to like defend the perimeter, and that was Wiggins. Like, that was reliable, and that was Wiggins. And Wiggins, like, We all know the story about Wiggins with last year. But this year, like Chris Paul is like having an insane. He always plays pretty well defensively, but he's having like a really good defensive efficient season. He's his plus minus is defensive plus minus is 1.7. Like that's above his last 3 seasons average. And then Moody has the 3rd highest plus minus defensive plus minus on the team. He has been a defensive juggernaut on the perimeter, and like that is going so unnoticed. I can't believe that Warriors Twitter is not talking about that more. So I think with that, I'm not worried about Boston as much. I'm not worried about Milwaukee as much because we got guys who can defend Dame, who can defend Jalen, who can defend, the guys that they have on those teams. It's really just the Nuggets, man. It's just the Nuggets and worrying about Jokic. At least off the top of my head, we can probably go through more, but like, just if we play the Nuggets in the playoffs again, like that's like a 7-game series is going to be concerning to me.
Yeah. I mean, the Bucks do concern me just because watching those games last year where they had Giannis, Lopez, and Portis, it was just like the Warriors couldn't get anywhere into the paint. They couldn't get any rebounds. Watching Portis on Kuminga was tough. I was like, dang, because Portis is like that dude's a man. He plays like it too. But for me, like I think those games were like matchup issues. And I mean, here's the thing: those guys are always going to be coming for the king. And all that I'll say is we'll see where some of those teams are in April. We'll see. Like every team has some kind of injury or dysfunction or runs into a lapse and whatnot. And it's just an unfortunate quirk of the schedule that they got Cleveland twice in 1 week, Minnesota back to back, and then OKC back to back without Draymond and without
and the Nuggets in the middle of all of that.
Yeah, exactly. Because right now, I do think that the Warriors are more built for the old head teams that they expect to be at the top of the West, like the Clippers, the Lakers, the Suns. You know what I mean? That's who they are preparing for. So when they get these 19-year-olds who are all ready to show out and prove on the national stage, like we're here, and they got all this energy and everything is on the table for them in every single game of the season, then they put out an excellent effort. But we'll see. I still don't believe in Gobert. I don't believe in Cat.
No. I mean, especially with that team, like Cat is such a defensive liability. Like you can just attack him. You could put Sarge in there, who's a great scorer, and just attack, get him into foul trouble. They always will have that weakness on their team. But like the schedule, like it's interesting because it doesn't lighten up too much. We have the Suns on Wednesday, and then we have the Spurs on Friday. That's our only relief. And then it's the Kings and the Clippers. You could say what you want about the Clippers, but they are still have some good players. We play them 3 times in like the next month, and then the Suns. So like we don't get some relief until the Nets and on the 16th. Like it's just the schedule is brutal, dude.
Yeah. So you talked about like, maybe Moody going in the starting. Like, and you really don't think that's going to happen, but do you think there should be any adjustments to the starting lineup at this point right now? I know Saric has started a few times, but like, is there anything that you would want to see? Because we have people in the comments saying, there's Daryl Haynes saying start Kuminga. I don't know if that's
no. I mean, that's a terrible idea. So
I love Kuminga, but yeah.
I get where he's coming from though, like because the athleticism is off the charts. But I talk about it in my piece. I think that if readers check it out, they'll be a little bit surprised of 3 of the
What's
top
the website
5.
name again? What's the URL?
Fansfirstsports.com. Oh, I mean the actual piece. I don't know. It just got put up, but it's on the homepage.
No, just the website because
fansfirstsports.com.
Okay.
And I think they'll be pretty surprised at 3 of the top 5, and I give reasons why they are up there. But Kuminga's big issue is like he's great offensively this year, and he is efficient too. He's not just like because he's getting more minutes and able to put up more shots in that second unit that he's scoring more points. No, he's shooting at a high efficiency. especially in the field from the field. And his like per 36 is showing it. That kind of is a better metric of showing how efficient you are as a player, as opposed to your just regular per game. But his defensive numbers are bad. He makes some good plays every once in a while, and those highlight plays where he gets those swats out of nowhere, those like almost feels like Wemby style slots where he just comes out of nowhere with the chase down blocks. But like in terms of like overall defensive like play, he is having the same issue that he had last year, and he's getting better game by game, I will say. But he's having the same issues that he had last 2 years. He gets lost, he gets confused, he's in the wrong position and gives up like big plays and big baskets. Every time he does that, though, what I'm loving about what I'm seeing from him this season is Chris Paul. They come out of timeout, Chris Paul puts his arm around him, talks to him, and the next play, he's better. He's playing better. On top of that, when he's on the bench, he sits right next to Chris, and they're like talking about it and they're going through it. So like the leadership, I think, is going to help him. Do I think he's ready for the starting lineup? Absolutely not. I kind of I love his athleticism in the second unit. So like, we have that athleticism in Wiggins in the starting lineup. We kind of need a replica of that in the second unit, and that's kind of what Kuminga does, which is great. I don't know. I really like that second lineup of Chris Paul, Moody, Kuminga, Saric, and it's been a mixture of GP2, but also pods a lot lately, and I really like that. And if you look at their like advanced numbers of that lineup together, they're like plus. I want to say they're over plus 10. I haven't checked it in the last few days. It might be a little bit lower, but like they're really good and they're really efficient. And especially with Pods' shooting, like, man, that guy, I talk about it in that piece. He is the perfect replacement for Dante DiVincenzo. And not just because he looks like DiVincenzo, but like his style of play. He's not a super athletic player, but he's a great spot up shooter, and he's actually a good shooter off the dribble too, which is what DiVincenzo wasn't as much. He's an amazing rebounder, and has a high basketball IQ. So defensively, he's just on it. He knows exactly where to go and where to be. So like, I've been really like kind of impressed by Pods lately. Maybe a few months from now, I'm going to be making the pitch for him to move the starting lineup in place of like Klay or something. But no, I think the starting lineup's fine now. I like the way Steve Kerr has mixed up the rotations a little bit, and he's really found something out of some guys and some combinations. So, no, I don't know. Do you? Is there anything like glaring to you that you?
No, because that's the benefit, perhaps privilege of being a dynasty team is the cadence of a season. You're not like panicking because it's a bad losing streak. Yeah, no one wants to see that, but it's not like if this were the Timberwolves going on a 6-game losing streak, they haven't proven anything, and they have bad history and bad mojo. So that would be a greater panic to me. I don't think Kerr would make a massive change to lineup. Saric over Looney, whatever, but until like things started really, really going into the tank. Someone could argue that, hey, losing 6 in a row, that's not in the tank, but it's the beginning of the season and guys are out. Funky things have happened. Schedule's kind of weird. So I don't necessarily think so. And right, like it's like the best 5-man unit last season. Are you going to bail on that in less than 20 games?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. And they really, really need to develop that second unit chemistry. And from the very outset of the season, that's what I'm excited to see. We know like the 5-man starting unit, like, yes, they haven't played well, but not that I'm bored with them, but like I'm always looking to see how these units evolve. And I'm excited by that second group for the most part. So I don't necessarily think so, but we'll see, because they're playing some teams that they are better matched up with, and then they get Draymond back. I don't know how long Peyton's out for, but like, okay, then we'll see if they can get back into the rhythm that they were in before, right? Like they have I was gonna say, like, they're playing the Suns in Phoenix, then they play the Spurs at home, and then at SAC. If they go 2-1 in that, All right,
That's
cool.
great.
You
Yeah,
know?
I would.
Yeah,
That's,
you know what I mean?
that's in my opinion, that's like the perfect scenario. Obviously, 3-0 would be better, but like I don't think that's very realistic. Like, yeah, especially with
Yeah,
Sacramento
yeah.
with De'Aaron Fox back, like they look like a completely different team with him back. It's insane how much impact that dude has on that team.
Exactly. And the reason why they match up with the Warriors match up with Sack better is because they match up better with Sabonis in their front line than
Yeah.
they do with Chet Holmgren or Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. So that will be telling. If they go 1-2, then I think like people start chirping a little bit more, and we're getting close to the quarter season mark. But I'll be happy with 2-1. I'm going to read some of these comments. Can you see these on your end? Can you see the comments?
I don't know. I don't know how I can.
Okay.
So
Never mind.
probably not.
But let's see. No need to start Kuminga. Wiggins is getting his game back. I do agree with that.
Yeah.
Kerr needs to change his ways. This is from Sid. Change his ways to manage the team. He can't be in 2015, 16, 17 mode.
Oh yeah, I can't see him. Sorry.
Yeah. So like, I mean, I tend to agree that we talked about how Kerr is a little too loyal at some point. And I was talking to my buddy JP about this morning, how he was saying like, he's not really that, he doesn't think Kerr's that great of a coach, but Kerr's more of like a manager. He's a Phil Jackson style manager, and he came with schemes of how to take Steph and the team's talents. He's not the best in-game adjustments guy. He's like, all right, we're just going to stick with what we know. He's going to be like, Steph is the best player on the court. We're going to ride his talents and his magic until the end. But
I think, like you said, that's his style of coaching, where it's like when he does make those in-game adjustments, like they stand out, and you're like, oh damn, like I've seen him win games on those, and like going against his like stubborn mentality of like, no, we're gonna stick with what we know. Like I think like sometimes he goes in the locker room at halftime, and like Kenny Atkinson just throws him like all these numbers and evidence of like why we need to change it up to this, and then he does, and then it's like, oh shit, we just won this game based off of that. But like, yeah, you're right. He totally. I would say it's more stubbornness than it is like he's just not good at making those in-game adjustments.
Right. Yeah. Maybe. But I
guess we don't actually know. We're not sitting on the bench with him, but
yeah, this is he's not coming on the show anytime soon. What do you make of, gosh, I hate to even give this kind of stuff credence sometimes, but like some of these lesser sports sites or chatter about I think the phrase I keep seeing is the Warriors at a breaking point with Jonathan Kuminga. What are your thoughts on trading him and any of this kind of chatter that always comes up? It's always like with Toronto or somebody else.
For like what, Anunoby?
Anunoby, Pascal Siakam,
so
packaging.
I love Warriors Nation, but like one issue that I have with our fan base, especially on Twitter, and I have 2 people in my group chat that are like this as well. So it's not just it's all of Warriors fans, is like the unrealistic trades that people make. Like like last year, like every Anunoby trade that I saw, it was just like, dude, if you're Toronto, why in the absolute hell would you do that trade? You don't get half as much out of that as you do. Oh, well, this person's young. Well, they get younger and they get picks. Okay, well, you have to do like, there needs to be like some form of evidence behind that. So like, I mean, to get Anunoby, who I think he just re-signed a contract and everything too. Like, I mean, that would be, Kuminga wouldn't be enough. I mean, so like what else are we giving up to make that one? I think like a realistic trade that entices me, but like I'm not there because I do genuinely like Kuminga, and like I encourage listeners to go look at his numbers compared to the last 2 seasons to now. He's dramatically improved, especially offensively. Is that a trade for Malcolm Brogdon up in Portland. Malcolm Brogdon would have an immediate impact on this team in second unit, especially offensively, which we could use a little bit of help, but definitely defensively. He's a stud on defense. He has some health issues, yes, but Portland is clearly in rebuild mode. They are obviously holding on to Malcolm Brogdon until the trade deadline, until desperate teams like maybe us need to make moves to improve their roster. I think he would fit in great. And I think that Portland would take Kuminga because he is a young guy on a short-term contract that could fit in with their other young guys, and they can build for the future around that. Does it solve all of our problems? I don't know. I kind of think we need a big man, and I don't think we need to sacrifice Kuminga in order to get another big man, but like, that's just my opinion. But like, if I'm looking for like a 1-for-1 type of move, Kuminga for Brogdon seems to make the most sense to me.
I vehemently reject that trade.
Totally get it. I totally get it. I reject that trade. Like I said at the beginning, I don't even want to have this conversation. I like Kuminga. I think we should keep him. But if for the sake of the podcast, we have to entertain it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, I can also just imagine like what happens to Moody if Brogdon's on this team. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, that's fair. I mean, I've had people on YouTube like, you know, pine for a big, and I'm like, okay, cool. Who do you want? You know, because some guys may free up come trade deadline. There may be some team that will want a prospect, picks, Chris Paul's contract as the season goes on. But is there anyone on your radar that you're looking at that could free up, or that you think is a legit realistic target, or anyone that is currently a free agent or on the G League team? Because to me, it's like, I never wanted Dwight Howard, and I'm glad he's not on the team.
Yeah, I didn't either.
JaVale was interesting. People brought that up, but he picked the Kings. You know what I mean? Like he just picked the Kings. And somebody also brings up Plumlee. I wanted Plumlee, but he quickly signed with I thought he was interesting. He quickly signed with the Clippers again. So you know, I like you were saying, like teams or fans always overestimate the draw of their team and also the their own assets, right? So like, I can't even remember any, like so many just ridiculous trade ideas that we've heard over the are just fandom in general, where it's like, oh, let's trade, you know, pennies for $100. But is there anybody that you can think of? Because I actually don't have anyone, to be honest. I don't have any centers.
So Rob Williams, before he got hurt, was another one. Again, because to me, it's not about like just in general, like looking for players around the league. It's also looking for players on teams, or teams are looking to move these guys to improve, to change whatever it is about their roster they're trying to change. The Blazers are clearly in rebuild mode. They want young guys, so you can trade some of our young guys or our picks for some of their guys that just don't really fit. Rob Williams was one of those guys until he got hurt. Not on that train anymore. Free agent wise, Montrezl Harrell is still a free agent out there. I think he would be an interesting fit on our team. He is not quite a center, but he is a big man. He is aggressive. He is an enforcer. He is physical. And I think that he could be an interesting second unit piece, and he can score when you need him to. But other than that, I mean, no, I mean, like I was on the JaVale McGee hype too, but yeah, like you said, he picked Sacramento. For whatever reason, he picked Sacramento. So, but yeah.
I want to ask you, because I wanted to talk about this last week. I know it came out last week, but like, the whole, the Draymond Gobert thing. But I wanted to ask if you had any thoughts on what Steve Kerr said the day after in his pregame presser against the Thunder in that first game. He called Draymond's actions inexcusable after defending them the night before. Did you have any thoughts on that? Because it's kind of a change of tune, slightly from previous comments on Draymond.
I mean, I agree. Draymond, it's getting exhausting defending him as a Warrior fan. I don't condone most of these actions. And like, dude, I worked for a company who made a documentary about him, and like it's on Amazon. It's called The Sessions, about him working with Deepak Chopra on like anger management and trying to be better. And 2 days after that documentary came out was when he punched Jordan Poole in the face. So it was like, this guy, he went through anger management training with one of the most famous Zen person in the world, who I mean, if he can't fix him, I don't know who can. And it's just like, I love the guy, but his lack of self-awareness is a little bit like, I think that caters into his like physical nature. And I don't like Rudy Gobert. Do I want to choke the guy? No. Like, it's just, and he was defending Klay, but the way he went about it was not the right way. Don't choke him out. Like, just kind of get in between him. But I don't know. I mean, maybe he was just trying to send a message to next time, to where it's like, you better like fear me now, and maybe it'll work. Who knows? I can't get inside the brain of that man. He baffles, he confuses me. But no, I'm not down with the violence ever. So I wasn't down with it when he punched Jordan Poole last year. I'm not down with it when he chokes Rudy Gobert this year.
Yeah, like I actually was like, I respected that the fact that he was defending a teammate.
Yeah, 1000%.
And I guess I can see from his angle, he saw like Gobert maybe thought he was getting Klay in a similar chokehold or whatever, or a headlock.
Yeah, I think Shaq
is just really tall
about that night on Inside the NBA. Like Shaq was making the claim like, well, Gobert like choked him out first, so like he's just pulling him off. And then Chuck was like, no, he's not. And then they showed like a video of Chuck doing it to Larry Bird back in the 80s. It's just like, and it just completely contradicted him. But yeah.
Man, I love Chuck. But it was just that Gobert, I think, is tall. And so when he like he put his arms around Klay, it was like up around his neck. I loathe Gobert.
Same.
I've said that for a while. He's one of my most loathed players in the NBA. Also, Corey Joseph is as well.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I've just always hated his game, but now we got him.
Woo! My buddy Xavier Gomez, shout out to Xavier if he's checking this out or listens to it. He also hates him, and he immediately after that happened, we would text in our group chat about like how much he was satisfied that happened to Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, and I think for Draymond, like and what Kerr said. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on last season, but it's like, it was almost like, it was very awkward to me because he seemed to be pausing a lot, and Kerr is a great talker, and he has his talking points all the time. And it felt like he was in his mind trying to find the words that would be on message for seeing all the replays and after the fact, and this is suspension and not creating waves externally, but then also not creating waves internally, not wanting to say the wrong thing that might kind of get aggregated anti-Draymond or something like that. But it's interesting because I do think that they gave him a pass and they enabled him a lot last season. And this verbiage of, we're going to give Draymond the tools to help him not to, the violence and all that stuff. So, I found that interesting, and hopefully there's fewer waves down the road. There's going to be something, but
there's
always the Warriors need him. The Warriors need him more than before in a lot of ways, because they don't have the enforcer types, or like just like the dudes who are just like vocal. They don't have David West. They have
Zaza, David West. They don't have Andre Iguodala. They don't have Zaza. They don't have those guys on this team anymore.
And it is what it is. And what, Draymond has one more game suspension, and then
no, he's only done 3 so far, right? Because
really, it's only been 3. Didn't he get 2 OKC games and then the Houston game?
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So it happened on Tuesday. Yeah. 2 OKC games. So he has 2 more. So after the Spurs playing the tournament game on Friday, he'll be good to go.
Great. Yeah. So against Sabonis and the Kings.
Dude, what's your opinion on the in-season tournament, real quick? Sorry for the sidebar, but
in-season tournament. I hear a lot of people call it play-in. I heard it on a podcast earlier. Yeah. I think you said it earlier. But I couldn't care less, but I'm entertained by it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's I didn't realize. I knew it would be like blended into the season, but I thought it would be continuous. I didn't think it would be like, okay, this counts as a tournament game. This counts as a tournament game. I'm fine with it. Like it adds a little bit of intrigue, and then you're gonna start seeing people be like, oh, this is the first team ever to win the in-season tournament and the finals, and the title. You know what I mean? It's gonna just turn into a thing. I don't mind it. It's marketing. It's to get interest back in the beginning of the season, and it gives some of these younger teams something to strive for.
I'm convinced they're trying to sell this package to a streamer. Like, hey, you can have the in-season tournament games. Like Netflix, you can have these in-season tournament games if you want them. Like, I'm a big fan because I am a European soccer fan. So, and European soccer does the same way. It's not continuous. It's just like, all right, here's Group A play, one game. A month later, Group A play. Like a group play again, and then it lasts all season long. The courts are distracting. Not a huge fan of that, but I get why they're doing it because it's a marketing tool. You see that court and it starts the conversation. I was out at a bar with friends 2 weeks ago watching the games on Friday, and friends who were in town, they live in Canada, and they asked like, what's going on with the court? I'm like, oh, it's the in-season tournament. Oh, what's that? And it just starts this whole conversation. So it's doing exactly what they want. But as a basketball fan who knows about the in-season tournament, it's distracting, but like they're not going to stop doing it because it just promotes it, just the conversation about the court.
Yeah, and I think the court, exactly. It's a marketing thing. When you see highlights, you're like, oh, that was an in-season tournament game.
Yeah, exactly.
When Draymond choked Gobert, that was an in-season tournament game. We'll always remember that. The first in-season tournament game at Chase Center.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, okay, out of these guys, who do you think is most likely to introduce or induct Draymond Green to the Hall of Fame? Steph, LeBron, Steve Kerr, Coach Izzo, or Rudy Gobert?
It's definitely Steph. Maybe Coach Izzo, maybe both. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know.
I think they only made the Elite Eight, right? They didn't go all that far on that team, so maybe not.
Oh, I stopped following college basketball when Draymond was at that point, but like,
okay,
I know they made it to the Elite Eight though. They may have made. They didn't make a Final Four.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, that's that. One random thought is like ESPN made this list of the top 25 under 25 recently, and listener list, but and I'm kind of revisiting a topic from earlier in this pod, but like it bugs me that nobody on the Warriors is on that list. I don't expect anyone right now on the Warriors to be on that list, but like they had 3 lottery picks, and to me it's an indictment of like the fact that they didn't let these guys get a little bit more run, that we can't see what they could have been, and that's the disappointment to me, because I think
Podziemski has not emerged yet though, so maybe he will be in the next version of that list.
Yeah, one day I always wanted to make like a something under something. Maybe one day I'll make the 75 under 75 list or something like that. Any other final thoughts or opinions? Oh, here's one thing. It's Thanksgiving in a couple days. What are you thankful for from this season or this Warriors team thus far?
The point god, Chris Paul. I am all in on the Chris Paul train. Like I said, like for listeners out there, I know I keep promoting it, but please go check out my piece. I worked really hard on it, hence why I know all these numbers that I'm throwing at Patrick right now on this podcast. It's the second best player rankings. I will just spoil. Chris Paul is at the top for a lot of reasons. One of them being how his leadership, his net impact on the team, what he does with the players around him, how he's improved everybody. And like the point guard experiment it's already proven itself right, in my opinion. I'm all in on it. So I hope that we can win a championship and get him his first championship. And I hope that he puts a big middle finger to the Clippers and the Hornets and the Suns, and I guess you don't do that in the NBA Hall of Fame, but I was gonna say goes in the NBA Hall of Fame as a Warrior. But I guess you don't do that.
Oh yeah, no.
That's only I think that's only in the Baseball Hall of Fame
Baseball.
that you do that. You go in with a certain team, yeah. But
yeah, because I think it's literally because in the Baseball Hall of Fame, I could be wrong.
You put a player on your team on your hat.
Put a cap.
Yeah.
Or you could be like Rob Lowe and just have NFL.
Yeah.
I'm
not gonna lie, I almost bought that hat just as like a
basketball.
Parody. I saw that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm thankful for like most of the discussion, or pretty much all the discussion is on the court. They're trying to figure out on the court stuff. It's not any extracurriculars, and that's what I'm always going to be thankful for this season. Who do you think was the Warrior, or you must have an opinion because you wrote an article about this. Who was the Warriors' best player last season? Second best player last season?
See, I kind of way back. The fact that I struggled to do that, to think of one last year, is kind of what inspired me to write this piece in the first place. So I think beginning of the season it was Jordan Poole, and then like after he became like ball stopper, ball hogger, Jordan Poole, and like, you could argue like all of Kuminga's frustrations and like a little bit of Moody's frustrations of like their roles like changing is directly altered or directly influenced by Jordan Poole and how he is a high usage, high on ball hog player, because he kind of stunted their growth by not like you look at his assists, like they're so low last season. Like he just was not dishing the ball out. So like when he started doing that, it made it tough. And like Draymond Green had such a surgence in the second half of the season, especially like on the defensive side. So I think that it was like split between those two guys.
Yeah.
What about you? Could you name one off the top of your head?
I could not, because as you said, like it kept fluctuating. Like you could say when for a stretch it was Klay, you know what I mean? And
yeah, it was for a little bit.
But he was like just chucking. He was just putting up like offensive numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's safe to say it was. I mean, like you said, it was muddled. It was muddled, just like the rest of the season was. You know what I mean? And be like, and just, it was James Wiseman. Now, have you been following Wiseman and Poole at all?
I've been following Poole based on Twitter, because Twitter just eats him up and spits him out, and it's like I feel a little bit bad for the guy, but like he's doing it to himself. Like I saw. Did you see the clip of him? Like he's pissed off going into a timeout, and he's just not paying attention in the huddle, and just tells his coach like to F off. Like, dude, what are you like? Come on, man. Like that just screams a guy who like knew that he came in that team and the team was built around him, and he just got this major like. It's not even a chip on his shoulder. It's just like this major like cockiness to him. It's just kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, I was pulling for the guy because I thought he got a little bit of a raw deal. I thought the punch kind of screwed him up. Yeah, and maybe it did, and maybe it still has. But like, I think that I didn't like his game last season. I've talked about the ad nauseum, and I'd see flashes where you get like 11 assists in one game last year. But the offense. Prancing, heat check, pool party BS. I couldn't roll with that. It's particularly because the defensive liabilities and stuff. And I was pulling for him. But what I see is like, when I highlight his stat line, it's because it's like showing that not necessarily him per se, but it's like how much the turnovers and how much Chris Paul helps the Warriors this season. I think that in terms of the of beating up on Poole is like, man, this dude, I mean, like you said, he's doing to himself. He believes his own hype. And let's face facts. Like, it's not like when Gilbert Arenas left the Warriors to go to Gilbert Arenas was dang good, right? Jordan Poole is maybe third, fourth best player on a contender, So it is what it is. And then every now and then I peek at the Wiseman box score, but that's not even.
He just doesn't get a lot of minutes, man. Yeah, and I honestly, like, who talks about it a lot is Bill Simmons on his podcast, and like he kind of keeps an eye on him, and he just talks about like how he's just even in the minutes that he gets, he just kind of, he's basketball wise. I don't know about him personally. Basketball wise, he's just very raw and immature, and like he didn't get the time to develop that because even his like college season was cut short. So it's like, he's just kind of just the circumstances of him in his career just have not helped him out.
Yeah, it's just he just doesn't have enough like he's just got a lot of bad things happen in his career. Not ideal. Always pulling for the guy. But when I peek in and watch him play, you could tell that he's still not there. He doesn't have the dog in him.
Yeah.
He doesn't have enough basketball in his muscle, like in his, in his basketball existence to have gotten to, like, imagine if he had played in a regular college system for all these years, how much basketball, how many pictures, as they say, he would have seen.
Yeah.
But all it is now is just like drills and lifting weights. But it is what it is. But cool, man. Well, thank you, Chris Madrigal from the Town Tailgate podcast. You can find Chris on Twitter at Chris24K Magic, which I can never remember. it's like
the Bruno Mars song, like 24 Karat Magic. Like I just try to. My last name is Madrigal, so I just try to like just. It's.
I figured that out. I figured
it was unique. It's better than just like at Chris 54321 or something like that, or whatever names it was. And like no one else had it, so I have it on like all my platforms. It's pretty great on my social.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's important to be branded across all platforms. As us content creators.
Yeah. And me and my co-host Julio, we're gonna do something for the off season for the A's. If you're an A's fan or something like that, and I'm working on a piece also for the A's, kind of comparing, because their owner is cheap, comparing what a championship winning roster would have cost them, their roster from a couple of years ago, what it would have cost them this season. So look out for that.
Cool, man. Any other places? So check out Chris' article on fansfirstsports.com, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the URL. Check out his podcast for sure and find him on Twitter. Cool, man. Well, thanks for coming on. Have a good holiday.
Yeah, you too, man.